Great. Hello, everyone. My name is David London. I am the Director of Innovation at the Greater Baltimore Cultural Alliance, and I'm joined today by Alix, who I will allow to introduce herself.
Hi, I'm Alix Hagen. I'm the Program Manager for the Baker Artist Portfolios.
Thank you so much. Before we proceed any further, I did want to mention that we do have live captionings on, which you can turn on at the bottom of your Zoom screen if you wish to be able to see those captions. As I mentioned a moment ago, we will be recording today's session, and we will be sending that out to everyone here, as well as posting it online for those of us who weren't able to join us today. And in addition to sending that out, at the end of today's session, we will also be sharing a document that Cheryl, our guest speaker today, has put together with some more information on the topics being discussed here today. For those of you who do not know, although I believe most of you probably do, the Greater Baltimore Cultural Alliance is a leading nonprofit provider of services to artists and cultural organizations in the Greater Baltimore region. Whether they are emerging or established, mainstream or underground, grassroots or institutional, GBCA believes in unifying and strengthening all members of the creative community. We do this through marketing, education, such as today, financial support, and developing innovative programs that increase equity in the cultural community and beyond. If you'd like to learn more about our organization, you can visit us at www.baltimoreculture.org. At this point, if I will say it again, if you do not want to be recorded on screen, you can turn off your camera now. It looks like most of you have muted yourself. If you have not yet muted yourself, we'll ask that you put yourself on mute and stay there unless there's a question that needs to be asked. And regarding questions, we are going to use the chat for questions today. If at all possible, we will ask, because Cheryl will be demonstrating the use of a screen reader today, and those questions will be read out loud by the screen reader. In order to prevent that, we are asking if you do have a question that instead of sending your chat question to the entire group, that you send it to me directly, David London. Then I will collect those questions, and at times where we pause during Cheryl's presentation, I will read those out loud. If you do send it to the whole group, not a big deal, don't worry about it. But if it's possible and you're able to manage that, if you could send those questions directly to me, we will make sure they get read. Many of you here today are artists on the Baker Artist Portfolios who have a portfolio. And in fact, it was the Baker Portfolios are the impetus for today's session, although having a portfolio is not a requirement for being here today. And the information that provided really is designed for artists and administrators at large. So that is not a requirement. But the reason that this session was instigated today is that we recently pushed forward some new updates to the Baker Artist Portfolio website. And in our never-ending quest to have a more and more accessible web presence, one of the required fields on the new Baker Artist Portfolio website is alternative text. And although Alix and I have done our very best to explain to artists who inquired what alternative text is, why they should use it, why we've made it a requirement on the Baker site, and why it's a very important consideration, we had enough questions come in that we decided that we should host this session and turn it over to an expert to delve in deeper than we are currently able to. And that is how we turned our attention to Cheryl Fogle-Hatch, who will be leading our session today. I met Cheryl probably about 5 years ago or so while I was working at the Peel Museum in downtown Baltimore. And Cheryl was brought in to provide accessibility consulting on several of our projects. And we got acquainted there and sat on a few panels together. And so when this opportunity came up to further explore accessibility options, we again returned to Cheryl, and we're excited to have her here with us today. Cheryl Fogle-Hatch, Ph.D., is the founder of MuseumSenses, which she created to showcase her work in researching and developing multisensory experiences in galleries, museums, and other cultural organizations. She believes that creating exhibit content with tactile and audio components has the potential to fully engage people who are blind with a broad range of topics. And furthermore, exposing people who are sighted to tactile and audio content creates an integrated experience for all visitors. And although that bio is talking about working with museum exhibits Specifically, Cheryl's expertise and knowledge applies to accessibility practices across the cultural sector, which makes her the ideal speaker for today to talk about alternative text and other accessibility features and pursuits for artists. So with that, I proudly hand it over to Cheryl Fogle-Hatch, who will take you on a journey for the rest of today's session. Again, if you have questions, please type them in the chat, preferably directed to me, and we will make sure those get read out loud. So thank you all so much for being here. And Cheryl, I hand it over to you.
Thanks, David, and thanks everyone for attending. I happen to be here in Baltimore, and I know some of you, so that's fun. I also happen to be blind, and I access computers with a screen reader, which is synthetic voice output. You will hear it shortly. I'm also using a refreshable Braille display to get text in Braille. They're connected. That is off camera. You won't see that because I don't feel like holding my hands up to the screen to show you that, but you will shortly hear my screen reader. It's a synthetic voice. I have slowed it down. It does take some practice listening to, and I use it faster, but we do the best for you who are beginning. If you happen to have iPhone, it's called VoiceOver. If you happen to have an Android phone, it's called TalkBack. And on the Mac, it's VoiceOver, and on the Windows, there's also Windows Narrator, and there's other screen readers, but I mentioned the ones that are built into devices so that later, if you want to look around a little bit and play with it a little bit, you can. It will give you a taste of it. You won't become an expert automatically, but you know, there are more options now for people to understand at least what a screen reader is and how they react than there used to be. So I'm going to turn mine on. There, now you're starting to hear it. Yep, I got to dismiss this recorded message before I share everything. Got it. Okay. Sharing my screen, and sharing my sound so you can hear it. Oops.
Select the window or an application that you want to share. Share sound checkbox checked. Sharing options with box. Use arrow keys to select content. Access lab vertical screen. Share your entire screen.
Okay.
Share sound checkbox. Select sharing sound. Optimize for optimize for share screen. Basic tab selected. Share sound checkbox checked. Select sharing. Optimize for optimize for share screen button. Enter. Stop. Screen sharing meeting controls. Screen sharing meeting controls. You have started screen share. Press F6 to switch.
Okay, so
Screen sharing meeting. Live transcription. Left parent closed captioning. Right parent has been enabled. Press F6 for more.
that's reading out the closed captioning message that's enabled. A screen reader reads everything that comes across the screen.
Participants cannot.
How it's designed to act. That's why we asked you to chat to David with questions. It's okay. I have ways of pausing it if I don't want to hear it say something, but a screen reader does not have a filter. It says exactly what is there. So I'm going to.
Access lab vertical bar. What is it?
This is, let me maximize this window.
Alt space context menu. Move size minimum. Maximize and enter. Leaving menus. Access lab vertical bar.
Are you seeing my screen now? So I'm on a website. This is the Access Lab. It's my go-to basic beginner resource for what a screen reader is. They have lots of audio and video clips attached, and it's a really good resource. Is this going to cooperate with me?
Screen sharing meeting controls. Access lab vertical bar. What is it? Same page link to main content. Alt +2.
So I'm just going to kind of arrow down and let you hear it, a part of this website read out.
Navigation region. Heading level 1 link graphic. Access lab link graphic. Alt +1.
So it's telling me my
List of 4 items.
That's my list.
Link contact. List end.
And so if I just want to skim something, I have ways of doing it. I can use the down arrow. I can make it read everything. I have it set to show you where I'm at, so you should be able to follow my cursor.
Navigation region end. Main region article. Heading level 1. What is a screen reader?
And I'm on the title.
Published 15 November 20. A screen reader is an assistive technology primarily used by people with vision impairments. It converts text. Button.
So as it said, you may not be able to understand, but it says that a screen reader is an assistive technology primarily used by blind people. Note about language. Most of us say blind or low vision, although the older term visually impaired is still around a lot, and you'll see it. But a screen reader basically puts everything from the monitor or the screen of a device into synthetic speech. And there are different voices and different configurations and all sorts of things, but that's it in a nutshell.
In the speech or braille, let's go through what a screen reader is, how it works, and see blind people in action.
And so that is why I like this site, because it goes through everything and it has lots of audio clips and video clips that you can come back to. This will be one of the resources on the handout that I'll send out, but I like to start with that just because it's so comprehensive. Another thing that screen readers do is let people hook up. As I said before, I also have a refreshable Braille display, so I can read in Braille or in speech or both. So that's another option for that technology. I'm going to close this window now because, like I said, I'm giving you that resource for later.
Close document window. Home vertical bar Baker artist portfolio.
That's the Baker site, which I will come back to. So let me tab out of there.
Screen sharing meeting controls.
That's back.
Screen sharing meeting controls. Home vertical bar Baker art curated alt text resources docs dash word.
This is the
Curated alt text.
handout that I mentioned that I was going to share with you.
Space. Speech on demand.
So for a minute or so, I am reading in Braille. So I have turned off my speech so that I can keep reading and you don't have to listen to both the screener and to the my speech. People who use screen readers normally get fairly good at multitasking, but you know, it's a learned skill. So let's try this again because I got a sound from my computer for a second, so I'm not quite sure what was going on there. And I'm back in Zoom. But anyhow, having said that, a screen reader reads out everything in synthetic speech. It reads text in synthetic speech. So the text of a website reads out in synthetic speech. The reason we talk about alt text is because when the screen reader gets to a photo, it is not able to interpret the photo. It needs a piece of text to hang on to. And same thing with the other controls of a website. It needs a link label to hold on to, a button label to hold on to, et cetera, et cetera. So it needs to know what to tell me. So that's the basics in alt text. Is there needs to be a description associated with the image that tells in text that tells me what it is. So I'm the primary audience for that, and using a screen reader, but other audiences and uses are if you're somewhere where you have limited bandwidth and your images aren't loading, your alt text might come up. Or if for some reason you've disabled image loading because you've got limited bandwidth, your alt text might come up. And the other thing is, as a byproduct of alt text being out there, people realize that just as a screen reader can associate the labels with the images, so can search engines. And so a search engine can search in your alt text. But that is a secondary use because some people were trying to completely overload their alt text with keywords, but that's not its primary purpose. Its primary purpose is to describe an image for me and to describe it concisely and clearly. Yep, so I had the Access Lab post that I told you about earlier. I'm going down through my document, make sure I'm on track. Alt text is a brief description of an image. The places where they need to be added are websites and social media platforms. These systems provide edit fields usually for it. There's usually some very detailed help for social media. There's a resource I'll give you for that. But the point is, for the websites or the web forms like Baker Portfolio and for social media, is that the fields where you add alt text is to associate the text with an image. And as I said, the reasons they're important is accessibility for screen readers and search options and usability if someone has bandwidth issues. So good alt text is accurate. It describes the content and function of the image. It is brief. It's a summary. And it is contextual. It's tailored the description to the context. So to tell you what to focus your description on, you need to know why you put this photo up in the first place. If it's a post about clothing, then you want to talk about clothing more. A catalog or a fashion post or something like that. If it's a focus on travel, you might want to talk about the landscape more. So you have options. I have a couple of examples of alt text. There's quite a bit online about alt text, which is a good thing. And so it means that there's some high quality resources that I'm able to copy examples from. So woman in a wheelchair smiling and waving at the camera describes the person and what she is doing. Then this is important for scientific. Pie chart illustrating the proportion of renewable energy sources, with solar energy being the highest at 40%. This is a summary, and it's also highlighting the most important characteristic of the image in this example. So these are examples. So these examples are short. They're, sentence 2, maybe. I'll talk a little bit more about longer image descriptions later. Again, the context is important. Scenic landscape of the Rocky Mountains with the blue sky and forest in the background. That tells you about an image. And I have the website that I copied it from will be in the handout, and you can look at that. Now, you can go from alt text, your summary. You can make it the first sentence of a longer image description if you want, if you're in a position where you have more space, or if you're describing an image to me. If I'm at your exhibit and I'm standing next to you, your first sentence would be of the pic. This painting shows a portrait of a person. That's your alt text. And then you can, in your image description, tell me about more things if you'd like. So they are related, but they are different. As also, captions are different from alt text. They're both important, but they're important for different reasons. A caption is important for everyone because it tells you about the names and places, and they're useful for everyone, whether you can see the image or not. The alt text, so the example I like to use for this is that the alt text describes what a graph looks like, and the caption tells you why the graph matters. And the example that I like to use to compare this to is from a report about inaccessible technology. So the alt text titles are telling me about the charts and what the percents are. And the captions are telling me what the fact is, that 60% of teachers report that their student cannot access a piece of learning, digital learning tool in the classroom. So that's the caption, but the alt text is the graph shows 60%. There are differences and people get them mixed up, and it's understandable, but I bring that up and give an example because people get confused about that. So I'm gonna turn my screen reader on again and gonna go over to the Baker portfolio because you guys have used it. And there's a couple of things that are alt text and a couple of things that I will comment on if the list of portfolios cooperates. If I'm where I think I am, if I'm not, then I will just tell you what I'm thinking here. But let me.
Full speech. Screen sharing meeting controls. Screen here is alt text resources .doc/word.
That's my document.
Screen sharing meeting controls. Here is alt text home vertical bar Baker artist portfolio home vertical.
Let me maximize my window.
Alt space context menus. Move side mid maximize and avail enter. Leaving menus main region. Blank. Become an online curator. Past awardee heading level 1 link.
I'm going down just to awardees because I think this.
Link graphic districts2.jpg.
So here's someone who in her alt text put in the file name because it says her name and it says JPG. That's telling me that's the picture file name. It's not descriptive to me, but it's telling me that something's there and it is a picture. So I understand it, but
link inter- multi-disciplinary link a moon. Film/video moon.
Somebody else has put in, it says a moon. I'm not sure if it's a title or an alt text. And again, it's giving me a little bit of information.
Film/video.
Again, these portfolios update in real time, so I'm not critiquing anybody in advance. It just popped up.
Link Janet only. Visual arts. Link McCormack and Fig left visual arts. Link China literary arts.
Yeah.
China Martins.
I'm not
Literary link
seeing
Annie music.
anybody's else.
Link Jules Ross.
Okay, I'm not gonna keep going through, but somebody I was looking at yesterday when I was on portfolios had an alt text, and it was about marbles and a photograph that had, or painting that had marbles. And it was a very good alt text, but because the site shows regular at random, I couldn't get back to that. But so that's an example, and I'm sure Alex and David have been giving you guys examples of good alt text. So if you, I guess an example I like to give people for alt text is back in the day when you were on the phone with someone and you were on a regular landline, or even now, if you have an audio only cell phone call and you're trying to describe something to someone, you're going to go for a summary sentence. You're going to say, that family photo where, so-and-so was doing such and such. That's going to, you're basically giving alt text to your conversation partner so that they can keep up. And that's how I like to think of alt text. You're putting a label in so that I have a text to understand what the photo is. Maybe it's, what is the famous still life, of the guy who painted fruit, there's fruit on the table, maybe it's, something else, but it's a feature of the piece. So what it is, why it's important, the biggest thing that you want someone to take away from it. It might be interesting to know, how many fruit are in the basket, but really I just need to know for using the principle that alt text is brief, I need to know that it is a fruit basket. So you can, depending on how descriptive someone's title is, you can sometimes get that. But if someone's title is evocative, like this whatever title I just saw, the moon or whatnot, if it's evocative of something else, I don't know if I only have the title in that field, if I understand what the piece is about or what the image is about, what's happening in the image, what the content is. And if the file name is there, if it just says, file name and JPG, I know I have the file. Sometimes defaults are when you save your picture on your camera and it labels it with a long string of letters and numbers, 453XHYKLJ. I don't know what that is. But if you just upload the picture and it's attempting to get the alt text from the metadata for the picture and it puts that in, that's definitely not helpful. So this is why I give people tips, and you can think about what you would want to tell someone on the phone, what the picture is about. That's the probably the closest experience that most of you have had to writing alt text. And writing alt text is something that people get better with practice. I have over the years reviewed alt text from people, and I can usually tell a marked improvement after, we've had a chance to talk about a couple of them. This is a learned skill that you can add to your toolbox, just like any of the other learned skills that you learn with digital media and Photoshop. And well, it's probably easier to learn to write alt text than to use Photoshop, but I am definitely not a Photoshop expert. But alt text is something it's a learned skill you can learn by practicing it. And the best thing is to do it and to practice it.
Screen sharing meeting controls.
I'm going to
home vertical bar Baker artist. Home vertical
out of Baker.
Close document window. Training check and c.k.fo.
No, that's my email. Close out.
Close document window. Page 2. Here alt.
Okay.
Space. Speech on demand.
So I'm kind of going back through, make sure. Okay. So another difference between alt text and captions. A caption is a good place for a photo credit. a photo of so-and-so courtesy of GBCA. That's a caption. That goes in the caption. The alt text describes the person in the photo. Man wearing, suit and tie in, I don't know, somewhere. Yeah, I'm just trying to give summary sentences off the top of my head, but you're looking at the photo, you'll be able to figure out what needs to go with it. If it's a picture of somebody for an award, then it's, like the headshot, and you just need to say so-and-so pictured wearing, and just basic color terms. I think maybe you could say he's wearing a red and white striped shirt. If he's got like 5 or 6 colors of stripes in the shirt, to me, that's overkill for alt text. You generally don't need to say image of or picture of, because the screen reader will tell me as I'm reading through it that it's a graphic. So the photo, you would say something like David wearing a black tie standing, or John Doe wearing glasses and a blue shirt against a white background. Very, very concise. I'll give you just a story anecdotally. Sometimes in some situations, like the social media platforms, Facebook has put something in where it attempts to automatically generate an alt text. I have a friend on Facebook. His profile picture, the only thing it tells me is glasses. He is a tall gentleman, and it never says anything other than, anything about his hair color, anything like that, but it always says glasses. So these automated systems pick up the one thing they notice and put it in. It's kind of like automatic captions in Zoom. So this is why the human skill for creating alt text is important, because you know what's important about your image. I don't. You're trying to explain to me what's important about your image. If it's important for me to know that your image is someone coming out of their shell and they're literally, it's Easter time, they're literally jumping out of an eggshell, that's important for me to know. Person popping out of eggshell, I might not care so much if while they're popping out of the eggshell, they're wearing something else. So pick the main detail that you want your audience to know, and that is what you put in your alt text. And sometimes it's a couple of details. I don't know, because I haven't created a Baker portfolio account, if you have a place for a longer description or if it's just alt text, because sometimes I've been on other sites where it'll say press enter for longer description, and then people give all the image description and all the details. But that's less common, and my sense is it's educational sites and other places, and that's a content decision that they have made. So in this handout I've sent around, I've put some other resources that are how to do image descriptions where you can add more detail. Or, if I'm coming to your exhibit, I'm gonna want more than the 1-sentence version. I'm gonna want the details if I've made the time to come see your exhibit. So that I provide all of that. But alt text I think of as your overview, your summary sentence, the first thing you'd need to start with to describe an image to make it make sense, to be the ABCs of alt text, to be accurate, brief, and contextual.
Cheryl, we had a question come in, and I just wanted to comment that the Baker site does allow for full image description, so we can.
I'll talk a little bit more
I wanted
about
to answer that question. A question came in, a couple of them. One was asking if you had advice about including color in the alt text. So yeah, so let's start there, and then I got a couple more for you.
Okay. I would say with color, be descriptive. Most people who are blind or have low vision have some color perception. I'm one of a few who do not, but I have learned over the years, just in language and growing up, I've learned, the sky is blue. I've learned that pink and purple are vibrant colors, and people who tend to like to wear pinks and purples are, there are style choices. And so I'm happy with basic color descriptions. I would say with your alt text to start with your basic color description. And then if you want to provide a more detailed image description, to go into more detail. So the basic single sentence alt text is woman wearing red shirt sitting in a garden, if that's important, or sitting on a bench with a tree in the background, if that's important. Your image description can start with woman in red on a bench with a tree in the background, and then it can talk about the flowers on the tree or the other trees, or if she's watching people in the distance, if it's cloudy and it looks like a thunderstorm's coming in. Somebody asked me about that on a painting. I was talking to an art museum person about a painting, and it looked like the storm was coming in. So those are details that can be added in an image description. And you can add more color terms and really paint that picture in your image description. Other
Great.
questions?
Yeah, thank you for that answer. Pat asked if you could share 2 examples on the Baker site about specific types of work. I'm not sure that we'll be able to locate those right now, but I'm going to rephrase the question, which is, how would you describe a piece of pottery or glass or fiber in alternative text? It's something, and I'm sort of projecting here, but something that, maybe has a luminous quality or a tactile quality. How would you describe that?
Let's see. Again, I would go for the summary. I'm going to fall back on my background in archaeology. A lot of times I in the Southwest US where I studied, a lot of times the color contrasting for pottery was black and white or red and white, and it was the different wares and the different clay qualities. So I might say black and white glazed jar, or red and white vase, or basket, large woven basket, or small basket woven out of pine needles, or cloth or quilt, or you have to make the alt text match the items. So you can have as many different kinds of alt text as you can have items that you want to photograph. Wooden desk, metal desk, wooden chair, metal chair, if it matters. Sofa, woman sitting on a sofa. I'm just going on. I mean, your alt text is going to vary because your images are going to vary. You're not all showing the same image, otherwise what's the point? I hope that helps, given that I can't get to examples consistently that are different right away. So
Thank you.
other?
Yep, I got a few more here.
Okay.
Barbara asks, when it comes to graphics that have something visual to describe, but there's also text in it, is there a hierarchy of information, or is one more important than the other? And then she says, I find that sometimes this can also make the alt text long. So if the image itself had text contained within it, how would you address that?
If the image has a lot of text, I would probably put it in the image description. I'd say text in the image reads, and I'd put it in that way. If it's the graph, I'd probably give a summary bar chart of population figures in Baltimore through time, just to give an example. So that's your alt text, that's your descriptor. And then your image description is bar chart ranging from X thousand to Y 100,000 people in Baltimore from years 1800 to 2020 with 1800 and the percentage and go through the bars increasing through 1950 to such and such and decreasing after 1950 to 1970 to such and such. So you're telling a story. You're telling a story in your image description, but your alt text says bar chart of population showing decline from year A to year B or rise from year C to year D. And in the image description, you can add all the detail, and then you can say text reads and give your text. Alternatively, if you're writing a document from scratch and you're putting it on the website, your own website, I would say put all that in the text and then label your graphic with your alt text. But realizing that you're, as uploading a portfolio like that, you're putting into the fields required. That's how I'd handle it.
Great. And just an important reminder that if you don't provide the text contained within an image in one of these other fields, then there's no way that that can be read by a screen reader. So a screen reader is not reading text off of an image.
Not without multiple steps, and me, the end user, having to do OCR and hoping it matches.
Got it.
The less work I have to do, the better.
There's a couple of other questions. In creating text for a piece of art, is there value or an approach in describing the medium? So I think that's sort of related to the question about glass or fabric, but how do you bring in somebody using a screen reader into describing the work when it comes to the properties of the work itself?
I would want to know whatever you would wish to tell me. Is it acrylic paint on canvas? Is it quilt depicting a scene from, a pastoral scene? Is it wood carving of an animal? I would want to know the medium as part of the description, and here I would say be concise and put it in brief and put it in the overview.
Great. Got a couple more here for you. Phoebe, so you just mentioned OCR, but Phoebe asked if you could define and explain what you mean by OCR.
OCR is optical character recognition. It's a technology to scan images or printed paper into electronic text. There are oftentimes instances where it won't know how to interpret an L or a 1, or it won't know how to interpret sometimes I's and T's, or other kinds of errors. But it's something I can do sometimes on my end as a user to try to figure out if I need to know something. I don't tend to do it on websites, but if you handed me a stack of paper, or not handed me, because I would have said something handed to me. If you dropped a stack of paper and then ran to your car and weren't around, I would probably put it on my flatbed scanner and read it. Or if you sent me a image, a JPG, I could run it through that and try to read it, but I'm more likely to write you back and say, what is this image? Because that's more accurate to get it from the source. So if I have to do it on my end, you risk me not understanding what you're trying to convey. So there are workarounds, and if you Google someone, it will come up sometimes, some of the things that technologies that have been developed to solve problems. But the best solution is to design it in a way that I don't have to go back and solve the problem that you have accidentally created for me. I hope that's clear.
Thank you. I'm going to combine two questions here because they're kind of similar, but I guess the core question is there ever an occasion where alt text would include interpretive content? And a similar question was talking, I think, about image description but interpretation. So just I think this is connected to the hierarchy of where different types of information go.
Yeah, well, I'll come back to it. Let's see. Your captions for everyone, photo credit, artist credit, your alt text is your summary, and your image description is your details. And I would want most of that interpretation in the image description with more detail, but if it matters that this is the last painting that so-and-so painted on their deathbed, I might want that in the alt text, but I'd want to know, first of all, what the painting is. Self-portrait of an artist as he lay dying, just to be very dramatic. I don't know if there's such a thing, but so keep your interpretation brief, I would say. In the resource that I'll send out, there are some really good image description guidelines by the Cooper-Hewitt Museum, Smithsonian Museum. It's up in New York. They do design stuff. Their image description guidelines go through scenarios that are very detailed, and they give lots of detailed examples. I don't recommend people start there because they get confused because there's so much detail. But if you're ready to go into really detailed image description guidelines, Cooper-Hewitt is good. And then there's another organization also in New York City for access to arts. It's called Art Beyond Sight. And they also have guidelines for alt text and image description that I send out. But again, they are artists and they revel in the details. My background originally was in journalism, and then I moved into the sciences and archaeology and history. So I tend to gravitate towards, and you'll see some of these resources too, what the news media does. Then we're living in a moment where people are beginning to be more diligent about these. So the Washington Post has guidelines about alt text, and they cover color contrast and font sizes and a bunch of other things that we don't have time for today, but they're important. So I'll send that link out. And some others. There's a really cool article in the Washington Post about alt text that NASA created for images when the James Webb Space Telescope was launched. And that's something that Space Telescope here in Baltimore, some of their people have had consultants and have worked with, coming up with a style guide and how to describe very complex images about space. So I would recommend that article to you all to read for examples. And NASA is pretty good about their explanations of figures and images and in general, some of the different NASA projects. So if you want more about that, let me know and I can dig up plenty of additional resources.
Thanks, Cheryl.
Mm-hmm.
I think that was the last question that has come in, but feel free if you have new questions or more questions to type them into the chat.
Well, I guess I'll spend the last few minutes talking about social media then.
Great.
One of the resources that I'm going to send out is by a group called Disability In, and they do inclusion and disability inclusion in big corporations, your Apples, Googles, Facebooks, etc. But they have a really good resource for how to do alt text for the different social media platforms that goes through step by step and gives examples. And I always tell people for social media to put in alt text, and it usually is under, for example, under Facebook, it's edit photo, and there's something. But every platform's different and it changes from time to time. So if you ever need to know how to do it and the resources that you have aren't telling you, go into the help sections and search for alt text, and it'll go through a step-by-step description. But people routinely miss that on Facebook. Back when I used to be on Twitter. LinkedIn is bad. LinkedIn doesn't, I don't know how well LinkedIn problems for alt text, but I rarely see alt text on LinkedIn. So social media is, if other than your Baker portfolios, social media is your big one for alt text. There is a way to do it on Instagram. If it's not in the resource I'm sending, look in their help section or ask me to find another resource. It's not a site that I'm on, but I have heard that Instagram has gotten better about that. So social media is big for alt text. And I'll say one last thing about social media. If you are writing your hashtag, please capitalize the letters of the words. If you run Baker artists together, capital B, capital A, so that it reads, so the screen reader knows to enunciate Baker artist. If you don't capitalize that A, it might run together. Baker artist. It's hard to say. It's also hard to hear. And then I've got to arrow through. Called camel case. So put your first letter of each word in capitals for a multi-word hashtag. You know, any of them you'll start to notice because there's still inconsistency and there's still a lot of lowercase run together hashtags. And now that I pointed that out, you'll notice. Yeah, other questions that have come in?
Yeah, one question came in from Pat, said, as a sighted person, how do I access the alt text in an image?
You would have to go into edit and into properties on your computer. You could do that. You could put it into properties on your computer. I don't know how it would upload to somewhere, but then you'd always have it with your computer. But you're right. Normally, I would access the alt text and you wouldn't because it's, you know, it tends to be hidden from view on the screen visually. So yeah, go to image properties and edit for that on your computer if you want to put it in there.
And with that, you would be able to scroll over and view the alt text?
Well, you would have to put it in, depending on where you are. Microsoft will sometimes, for example, that's what I use, Word will try to put it in for you. It'll notice it's an image, but that's a lot of times not accurate. I have a photo of, again, my archaeology background. I have a photo of stone spear points that Word thought was a mountain range because they were triangles of varying height.
Yep.
So you do have to check these. Always check these.
Yep.
Yeah.
I did. We got a few minutes left, so I want to encourage anyone who has more questions to type them into the chat. I did want to, Cheryl, diverge for just 1 second and actually pull up the Baker site for 1 minute and just show folks here who have a Baker. Show folks here who have a Baker portfolio where it is that they would add the alternative text. So I actually have my portfolio open up here. Here's my list of projects on the back end of my edit portfolio page. For those of you who have a portfolio, click on your name, click the edit portfolio button. I've opened up a specific project here, and I'm going to find a single piece of work here, which is just the first image here. If you click on the edit button, you can see that the first field is the name of the file, and the second field is actually the alternative text. So here I say a side-by-side pair of duplicate old-style photographs displaying a young woman with a steampunk headpiece sitting at a table surrounded by robots. That is my alternative text. That is not the name, nor is that the description, but that is the text I've used to describe this image. By default, since we just migrated a bunch of content over and we've just started requiring the alternative text field, by default, your portfolio may have in that alternative text field a duplicate of the name. And we did that because we've required the field, we had to put something there, and we know that this is a process to utilize alternative text, and it does take time. So to have some text there, we've copied the name over automatically. However, it is our recommendation, and one of the impetuses for today's session is our recommendation that artists, now that their portfolios are completed and being adjudicated, now go back and update their alternative text. This is a process. It does take some time and energy, but we hope that one of the things you've gotten out of today is the value and importance of taking this step to have your portfolio and the rest of your virtual presence be accessible to everyone. So as I always say on the Baker site, make sure you hit save and hit save again, and then that description becomes public. Happy to answer more questions about the alternative text on the Baker site or any other questions that have emerged for Cheryl. Pat, I do see your additional question about how someone without a screen reader can see alternative text on the Baker site. I'll follow up with Cheryl and do a little bit more investigation. I presume you're asking this question as a learning tool for yourself and for others. How do we see how people are describing their work? And so I will get back to you with the best method that we can uncover for you to be able to see the alternative text. So I just want to acknowledge your question and say that I will get you an answer on that momentarily. All right, any other questions? Any other comments, Cheryl?
Other comments? Practice. We could, if you want, do an office hour or something. Or some other kind of follow-up we can talk about.
Great. Yeah, definitely interested in that. And I also will say when we follow up with everyone who's on this call today, in particular the artists, we will ask if there's other accessibility topics that you are interested in us delving into, which we would certainly be happy to do, as well as putting forth our own topics. So keep your eyes peeled for that email for additional follow-up. And if there's any resources, information, tools that we can provide you, please do not hesitate to reach out. We are certainly happy to do that. Alex, do you have anything you want to add?
Just appreciation for being here. This is recorded, so we'll share the full recording with you and have it accessible to artists on the website. So if you found it helpful, feel free to direct people towards it.
Great. Well, thank you all for taking the time to join us today, and especially big thanks again to Cheryl for leading us through this journey.
Big thanks, Cheryl. Thank you.
As a
Learned
reminder
so
to
much.
everyone, a conversation that
Thank you, Cheryl.
many of us have had is that accessibility doesn't necessarily have an end game, and all we can do is continue to strive to be more and more accessible in everything that we present to the world. So I really appreciate, Cheryl, you having you as a partner to
Thank you so much, Cheryl. It's Pat.
You're
Thank
welcome.
you.
Thank you all so much. We hope you enjoy the rest of your rainy afternoon, and we will be in touch soon.
Jazzy Burgess Lesher has left the meeting.
Thank you.
Lawrence Hunters has left the meeting.
Very interesting.
He's not the man.
Okay. Anything else from me before I?
No, do you want to stick around for 1 second, Cheryl? We can just wrap up.
Like, absolutely.
Great. And I'm going to stop the recording here. Okay.